This text tells the controversial story of a woman who killed her lover's husband, cooked his flesh, and served it to her neighbors at a party. It's a true story of a woman who, driven by her desires, commits murders that go unnoticed for years. Mrs. Kelly Cochran was born on June 5, 1982 in Indiana to parents Tim and Melanie with two younger brothers. From an early age, she faced the hardships of life. She was disrespectful to her mother, and as she grew older, her behavior worsened. By the time she reached adolescence, she was clashing with her teachers at school and became addicted to drugs. Her family couldn't bear it anymore. When she turned 18, her mother, concerned about the influence of her younger siblings, kicked her out but told her she could return anytime she got clean. During this period, details are scarce, but she goes to college, excels in psychology, and eventually pursues forensic medicine, a field crucial for covering her tracks in murders. Her choice to study psychology stemmed from her desire to manipulate people professionally. Towards the end of her education, her grandmother passes away, deeply affecting her mother. She decides to reunite her family while there's still time. She calls Kelly and insists she come back home, under the condition that her boyfriend Jason also moves in. They agree, and Kelly and Jason move into her parents' house. Jason, 4 years older than Kelly, had known her since childhood. However, her mother regrets her decision as they constantly argue. Despite their love-hate relationship, they got married, but an incident at their wedding shocked everyone. They made a vow that if one from them ever cheated, the cheater would have to kill the person they cheated with. They moved out, quit their jobs, and started a business together, maintaining a good life until Jason fell into serious depression. Kelly knew but didn't help him and even mocked him at times. Their relationship deteriorated, affecting Jason's mental health to the point where he couldn't work anymore, leaving Kelly as the sole breadwinner. Their financial strain and Kelly's constant anger towards Jason escalated to the point where Jason started to resent himself. Their physical relationship also ceased due to Jason's condition. Jason turned to marijuana, worsening his mental state. One day, he met a 50-year-old man named Chris Reagan. Chris, known as a kind and pleasant man, had been married with kids but recently divorced after 28 years of marriage. Chris and Kelly hit it off, and their affair began. Jason eventually realized Kelly's infidelity but kept it to himself. Chris wasn't as serious about their relationship as Kelly. After a while, he abruptly told her was moving to North Carolina for a job. While he mentioned starting afresh, his real motivate was to reunite with his ex-wife. Kelly was losing her mind because things weren't going her way, which eventually led to the current case. She went to Jason saying, "I cheated on you. Let's do something to save our relationship. Let's fulfill the promise we made on our wedding night." The only way to save their marriage was to kill Chris Reagan. According to their plan, Kelly was supposed to kill Chris, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. She convinced Jason to help her. They arranged for Kelly to call Chris for a final meeting at their house, where they had sex during their intimacy. Jason entered the room and shot Chris from behind, killing him. Then they disposed of Chris's body in the basement and cleaned the house thoroughly. Kelly took Chris's car and parked it in a public parking lot 50 kilometers away from their home. Meanwhile, Jason dismembered Chris's body using a chainsaw he borrowed from their neighbor. Neighbors reported hearing the sound of a chainsaw all night, and the next day, a foul smell emanated from their house. But they didn't suspect anything until Kelly and Jason invited them over for a barbecue a few days later. The neighbors found it odd because Kelly and Jason had never been friendly before. They were also surprised by the amount of meat Kelly served, questioning how they could afford it with their financial troubles. Moreover, they found the taste strange and asked what kind of meat it was. Jason claimed it was game meat he bought from a local butcher he used to work for, but it was actually Chris's body, although this was never proven. Nothing directly tied Kelly to Chris's murder. But what she didn't know was that Chris's wife, who was waiting for him in North Carolina, reported him missing 2 weeks after his disappearance. When police investigated, they found that Kelly and Jason suspicious but lacked evidence to arrest them. Months passed, and Kelly and Jason continued their lives without suspicion until police found a crucial piece of evidence that allowed them to obtain a search warrant for their house. They discovered that both Kelly and Chris's phones were pinging from the same location. Additionally, they found a notebook where Jason had written about wanting to kill someone, although he didn't specify who. Another piece of evidence was a blood stain found in their house, but it was too old to determine whose blood it was. Despite these findings, the evidence wasn't strong enough for an arrest. However, it convinced the police that Kelly and Jason were their prime suspects, so they intensified their search for incriminating evidence against them. Kelly was smarter than expected in this field due to her studies. She quickly gathered their belongings and moved to another state, Indiana. This move delayed the investigation even further until the FBI took over the case. The transfer sped up the investigation, but even the FBI couldn't find anything concentrate against them. They decided to take matters into their own hands and confess. In February 2016, the cops hit Kelly up and said Jason was coming over to discuss some serious stuff. She freaked out, thinking he was gonna throw shade at her, so she decided to confront him. She gave him a high dose of heroin and suffocated him with her hands. The next day, she calls emergency services and claims that Jason died next to her while she was asleep.
Wake County 911. He's breathing barely. I don't know what's wrong. He's throwing up. He's sweating.
As soon as the police see the body, they realized it was a murder because there were fingerprints around Jason's neck. They arrest Kelly and take her in for questioning. It would have been easy to convict her of Jason's murder, but they wanted her to confess to Chris's murder as well. They pressure her until she admits, but she blames everything on Jason, saying he did it all, even planning Chris's murder. However, the police don't buy it. Kelly is sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Chris and Jason. After a while, my brother goes to the prosecutor and confesses that, besides Jason and Chris, my sister has killed 9 other people. The police are very shocked at how it's possible that we didn't notice this over the years. Since his job was in forensic medicine, it wasn't unlikely that he could easily cover his tracks. When the police interrogates him, he smirks and ambiguously says, "Maybe I'll be convicted if you can prove it." Case closed. If you're into crime stories and documentaries, subscribe to our channel because we'll be posting loads of videos every day.